Welcome back. Junkies on 106.7 The Fan. It's Cakes, EB, Leitch, and JP. That's your foursome. Going to be joined by Allie LaForce at 8:40. She's now a sideline reporter with Gary Danielson and Vern Lundquist on the SEC on CBS. She'll join us at 8:40. Jason Cole from Bleacher Report at 9:20 talks some NFL. And then our buddy Holden Kushner will talk about the Nationals, who now have an 8-game lead in the NL East. But joining us right now, who's the founder of Deadspin, now with SportsOnEarth.com. We've had him on before. It's Will Leitch, who has an article, Ray Rice, Seeing is Believing. What's happening, Will?
Hey, good morning, guys.
You know, Will, one of the interesting points I thought you brought up in the article was that at the time of the incident and when the video first got released of just Ray Rice dragging his now wife out of the elevator, his lawyer was kind of adamant that there was more to the story and that when we got the complete evidence that we would kind of change our mind. It's really mind-boggling when you look back on that.
Yeah, I mean, he said it in this kind of smug way, too, like, listen, you people that are stupider than me, I know the real story. Once the video of the elevator comes out, trust me, you're going to get it. And I have to say, it is pretty staggering. I'm trying to imagine. I understand, listen, lawyers, it's the job. They have to bend the truth sometimes. But it's hard to imagine that anyone, the NFL, the lawyer, anyone, actually thought in this day and age that this video would not come out and not make those words look pretty horrible right now.
And, well, you point out on your piece on Sports on Earth that dozens of NFL players have been accused of domestic abuse in the last 10 years. The majority of them are never suspended. Ray Rice is only in trouble with the NFL and was suspended indefinitely because of the video. If he had done this behind closed doors, he may have been suspended for a few games. He would not have lost his job. He would not have been a pariah in the NFL like he is now.
Yeah, I think this speaks to one of the general problems of the Roger Goodell NFL. There's not so much policy. There's just kind of zigging and zagging in the face of public opinion. If you look at Ray McDonald, the 49ers defensive lineman he was arrested last week for assaulting his pregnant wife. He played on Sunday. Of course, we all watched that game. We probably noticed him we didn't notice him while we were making fun of Tony Romo. Like we don't really think about it unless we have the video. I think a lot of this is on us too.
Right.
That there is a certain kind of we don't get fired up. We claim that we have zero tolerance, but Ray McDonald plays and we don't even really notice. It's the video. The video is the thing that really does it. It's weird that this video, the reason Ray Rice was in trouble in the first place was because of the previous video where we all assumed what went on in that elevator. Now we've actually seen what went on in the elevator, and now we're even more angry. So that's basically what we all thought was happening in the first place. There's something kind of strange about it's almost kind of social media, like immediate activism in a lot of ways. Like, we're really angry. We're not going to actually do anything about domestic violence, but we're really angry about this video, but not so mad that, we'll spill our coffee at our desk while we're on Twitter or anything.
You do bring up a point, and it always gives me a little bit of pause, and I try not to ask for people's jobs and think, on the radio, who cares? You're just a hack DJ. Nobody really cares. But now in the era of social media, this mob mentality will happen within seconds, and all of a sudden you're in the eye of the storm, and you just wonder, is the right outcome ultimately gonna come out of these things? I think ultimately here it probably has. I know when the incident first occurred, we said, guys should be in jail, for a long time. But you wonder. There's a part of me that feels sympathetic to people who get caught up in these social media storms. I have to admit that.
Yeah, certainly. Certainly Rice isn't among them, but I do understand your point. And I think it speaks, frankly, again, to Goodell and the way the NFL kind of runs this stuff. It's clear, it's when they came out a couple of weeks ago and said that, okay, we have this new policy on domestic violence and 6 games for one offense and a full and lifetime ban for the second offense, even though you can come back and reapply after a year and we'll probably let you in because we're the NFL. And it was funny because basically they put out this new rule that was neither new nor a rule, but what they were doing was they were reacting to they were just swaying with public opinion. They were
yeah.
And when you do that, even when you stumble across what might actually be the right thing to do, which I think is what they did in this case, you don't have any consistent policy. You're just kind of yanking yourself to and fro, and that's why Goodell looks so terrible here. If he really believed strongly about this, he would have made this strong statement that he made yesterday, which, by the way, he waited until after the Ravens had cut him to be like, oh, yeah, now he's suspended, which is kind of like the guy who has his friends be like, oh, good thing he's holding me back from a fight or something. Like, if he wasn't holding me back, I'd be all over him. And I think there's something to that. I think when you don't have any consistent policy, you're just reacting to the news like that, and I think it's very dangerous.
Here's what I don't understand, Will. Is for a guy who really prided himself on harsh, tough penalties, a get-tough commissioner, the 2-game suspension never made sense from the beginning. How did it behoove? I can understand how it behooved the Ravens, and I'm sure they lobbied for it. And I'm sure Ray and his wife, and what an awful situation that is to put the wife in that deal. I'm sure they lobbied, for it too. But how did it benefit Roger, his reputation, his league, to give him 2 games from the beginning? That made no sense to me.
Yeah, it's really tough to understand, and you can tell kind of from the beginning. The NFL never quite got this. They never quite understood the seriousness of this. They never quite understood how people were going to react. And frankly, they didn't really understand how news spread now. And it doesn't, I think that they thought, listen, you saw this yesterday when you saw all the reporters who initially had been told months ago that the NFL had seen the video, all coming out and be like, no, we weren't told that. Like the 7 or 8 reporters that are all really plugged in with the NFL, the NFL is used to getting their way with media. And they're used to having the message that they have kind of parroted and echoed throughout the league. So I think that they thought they would be able to control this in that way. And I suspect they will not think that again.
Joined now by Will Leitch, senior writer for SportsOnEarth.com. In your article, you point out that some of this is our fault too. Explain why.
Yeah, well, I really think that speaks to, the fact is, I use the Ray McDonald as a great example of this. We say we're so angry about this, and we do not want this guy in the league, and we get rid of him. He should never play football again, even though there are tons of other players that have all been involved in this. And listen, to be fair, I think that I'm not trying to say that there is a domestic violence problem among players, like football players are all these brutal people who are all doing this. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we claim that we have zero tolerance on domestic violence, but really we have zero tolerance when we've seen a really bad video before breakfast. And then we're really, really angry about it. But that's kind of the end of our activism. We see it, we tweet about it, and we're really mad, and fire him. But we don't actually take the next step and actually try to look into domestic violence a little bit and look at the causes, or at the very least find other players that have been involved in this that don't have a video like that. And I think that speaks to look at Floyd Mayweather, for crying out loud. He's been involved in stuff that's much worse than Ray Rice, but we don't have the video, so we're not nearly as angry about it. And I think as long as we perpetuate that, I think it's going to continue to be part of the problem.
So this story, Will, is not going away. Maybe it's just starting. So what does Roger Goodell do? I said earlier on the show, I think that at minimum he's got to have a press conference and just answer questions about it and admit that he botched it, maybe tell the truth about the video, whether or not he saw it. I'm sure he's not going to back down from that. But I think he can't just run away and hide. I mean, he's got to talk, especially since the Ravens are playing on Thursday. I think he's got to come out and talk about it.
I think so. That is. You can look at the difference just in general styles of Roger Goodell and, say, and Silver, the commissioner of the NBA. You can see Silver sitting there and taking an hour. We've seen him do it. We saw him after the Sterling thing, taking an hour of questions, understanding. Silver inherently understands everything always comes out. This is the way it works now. Everything always comes out. You can control the message only to a certain point. If you give people information, that you have to just kind of get ahead of it a little bit. Goodell really isn't that kind of commissioner. He has more of the CEO of a bank mentality, where you basically can keep it all in house and you can control the message, but it doesn't work anymore. Sure, I think Goodell probably should do that, but frankly, I don't think he can do that because he hasn't acted like that up to now, which means there's a lot of questions that I think in a public forum are going to be extremely difficult for him to answer. And the notion, the notion yesterday, you saw that they've been behind on the story from the beginning. The idea that you're going to be able to have one press conference now to try to catch up, it's not really in Goodell's style. And frankly, I don't think it's in his best interest. He has to hope, to me, it's sad to say this, but if I'm Goodell, and I think you just have to try to ride this mess out. And the advantage of football always has. This happens every offseason. We spend a whole offseason talking about concussions and domestic violence in the NFL and unions and replacement refs. And we get so angry at the NFL. And then the season starts and we're like, woo, sack, great play, and it works because the NFL is so powerful. They have so much power in the television world that they generally get away with it. I suspect that's the way he's handled it before. I suspect that's the way he will handle it this time. The question is, it's really on us whether that works. Is how much we're really willing to follow through on some of the things that we're really so angry about.
So, Will, let's forecast the future. Get your prediction. What's going to happen with Ray Rice? You know, when the Michael Vick scandal first broke and he went to jail, a lot of people thought he's never going to be back in the league. And now it's kind of, I don't know if it's all forgiven, but he's been in the league for a couple of years now. What happens with Ray Rice?
Yeah, well, I think one of the advantages, if you want to call it that Vic had was, Vic followed up. Vic even gave Rice advice earlier this year, talking about, like, listen, you have to really become an activist in this. Like,
right.
To this day, Vic is still very active in animal cruelty and in fighting against that and talking to Congress, and it's not something that he just does as a public relations thing. I'm sure the reason he does initially did as a public relations thing, but certainly it's not something that he's just now forgotten about and is hoping people. That's going to be harder for Rice to do that. I think it's going to be harder for Rice to do that because a lot of people that he would be speaking to just don't want to hear it from him in a lot of ways. And also another major issue,
the video is going to haunt him everywhere he goes.
Yeah, and frankly, another major issue, not to get practical about it, but Michael Vick, I think, had more football left in him than Ray Rice does.
For sure.
And I think that if Rice were to miss, it clearly seems like he's going to miss the rest of this year. It's hard to imagine another NFL team picking him up. By the time that Rice would get back, he's a running back. This is not a league that does kindly for running backs that have missed a year. It's hard to see, frankly. He was not great last year.
Right.
And so it's hard to see, and I feel strange saying that, but that's the way the NFL works. The real reason that Vic was able to come back is because he had a great season.
Yeah.
And inevitably that's what really counts in the NFL. It's hard to see how Rice is going to be able to come back that way.
No, you're right, because someone brought up a point earlier in the show that if this was Adrian Peterson or if it was LaShawn McCoy or, give me another back, great back,
Right.
Charles.
A younger back?
Yeah, he's not getting cut.
Yeah.
He might
Right.
get suspended, but he's not getting cut.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the thing is, a lot of times guys like Rice too, they'll get an extra year on a team just because Rice has done a lot of good stuff for the Ravens.
Right.
Has been pretty good in for years. But now, that's not going to happen now, and it's just hard to see in a situation where who wants to take a chance on a guy that frankly hasn't been that great for a couple of years.
Nobody will.
It's hard to see how that happens.
Yeah.
Hey, Will, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for the time. Thanks for having me.
Okay. All right,
I mean,
everybody, give
why-
him a follow.
Why would you
Twitter, of
sign
course.
a public relations nightmare like Ray Rice, 28 years old, 29, a year out of the league, when there are hundreds of guys 8 years younger just waiting to get a running back gig in the NFL? It
Might
doesn't
come
make any
down to a
sense.
favor.
But you know what?
Like a year from now, it might come down to somebody who was tight with him, who believes in him, and believes and really lobbies hard
Well, I believe-
to bring him back in the league.
I believe that pool's
But the
drying up
Ravens have
quickly.
now turned their back on him.
I'm not
so I
a
don't
big
think it would be
I'm
the
not a big
Ravens.
cliche guy, but this one really rings true in most cases in
Which
life
is?
time heals all wounds. And I think that over time, when people forget about it, he'll get another
I'm
opportunity.
going to add an addendum to time heals all wounds, except when there's a video.
The video hurts.
The video will haunt him forever.
The video hurts. It'll
and
haunt
it'll
him.
always be brought up. So the next time a town is talking about it,
Yeah.
all the everybody's going to put it on social media. The video will be out there. All the news channels have the video again, and then the outcry
But
will
there's got to be a case, and I can't think of one off the top of my head, but
where there's been video and the guy's gotten
still
a
got
second
back
chance.
in. Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
hard.
but it does haunt you.
Hey,
I mean,
you know what?
look how many.
Oh,
look how many
yeah,
times,
right now it
look how
kills
many
you.
times we've played the Mel Gibson drops.
Okay, but it's not like Mel Gibson doesn't get jobs. I mean,
Not the same caliber.
you know what I
Pat
mean?
O'Brien, who was on last week. That
I mean,
tape
every
lives
time we
on.
get close to the Junkies poker
But that's
open,
more
EB Loves
comical.
retweeted the pic of me in the friggin' lobby.
Right.
It just happens.
Are you
mean-
bitter that I retweeted
No,
it?
it's fine.
There's
but it
video.
just happens.
There's
It
video.
follows you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there video of Pac-Man Jones hitting a girl
he-
outside of a bar?
Right, he punched her
Yeah.
in the face.
He played on Sunday.
Right.
Right.
It was
You know what I'm
grainy
saying?
video.
Ray McDonald
It was
is
great.
No,
Grainy.
you might be right. I
I'm
wouldn't
just
be, I
saying,
wouldn't be
Tom,
shocked if he's
I'm
back
just,
in the
I'm
league.
just saying
I
today.
agree with you, generally speaking.
Today it seems like there's no chance for it to happen,
Like
but
Will Leitch
over time
said,
I think it does.
Ray McDonald assaulted a pregnant woman. Okay? Think about that. Assaulted a pregnant woman who was playing on Sunday.
After,
Yeah, but there's no video.
after his coach said he had a zero tolerance
Well,
policy.
the NFL's filled
Yeah,
with
but
hypocrites.
I know he said
he's
zero
in a
tolerance
tough
policy.
spot.
He said zero tolerance policy with due process.
He's
so-
in a tough spot.
But I mean, he just said he had zero tolerance policy, and then the guy commits
I
domestic
think what you
violence
have
that
to do,
weekend.
I think what you have to do with some of these cases is you have to say, okay, you're suspended with pay maybe until
Right.
until we. get to the bottom of it.
All right, coming up next, I'm going to give you a chance to win a great prize. We're giving away tickets to see DC United take on the Philadelphia Union at RFK Stadium Saturday on September 27th. Tickets are still on sale. Visit DCUnited.com to get yours today. You can call us now, 10th caller, 800-636-1067.
1067 The Fan.